Hashima Island, one of dozens of controversial sites Japan has pushed to gain UNESCO World Heritage recognition.
This one is 8,400 feet up in the mountains, just east of the high Sierras, near the Nevada line.
Look at this onesie clown doll.
Exploring deep into the darkness, where the ghosts of the past still creep through the collapsing walls of these barren asylums, where madness once reigned and lost amusement parks trapped in time. Each of these abandoned places has a story to tell. You'll see the haunting beauty of nature taking over what was once man-made in these 20 creepiest abandoned places on the planet. Number 20. City of the Dead. In the Russian town of Dargovs is a terrifying location known as the City of the Dead. This centuries-old necropolis contains the final resting places of over 10,000 people, many of whom are still dressed in their costumes and personal items. Those who enter may never return, according to local tradition. The earliest origins of this burial site are unknown, but historians are steadily revealing its secrets. Due to limited space, some believe that during the Mongol Tatar invasion in the 13th century, residents began erecting above-ground crypts in this 17-kilometer valley of the Caucasus Highlands. Others argue that it is a continuation of the Indo-Iranian tradition of migrating Sarmatians, who landed in southern Russia and practiced above-ground graves to honor the land. The City of the Dead now has 99 beautifully maintained medieval crypts with curved roofs and single windows. The corpses inside some of these crypts are so perfectly preserved that flesh still clings to their bones. This necropolis also tells the tragic history of the region, including a succession of plague epidemics in the 17th and 18th centuries. Infected people are thought to have sought safety in these crypts, awaiting their inevitable demise. Some of the dead were placed in wooden coffins shaped like boats. Although there are no rivers nearby, ancient residents believed that crossing a river was necessary to reach the afterlife. This 1.5-hectare cemetery is a marvel of medieval construction. Number 19. The Place of No Return. The Ospedale Psichiatrico di Volterra, a former psychiatric institution with a grim background, is located in Tuscany, Italy. It was formerly home to nearly 6,000 patients and acquired the frightening title, The Place of No Return, and with good reason. The asylum was a house of horrors that was closed in 1978 owing to harsh practices. Patients who were transported here for treatment were believed to never return home. When you enter this deteriorating institution, you are confronted with a frightening scene of empty beds, abandoned wheelchairs, and walls with a mysterious code. The courtyard walls of the facility are carved with the carvings of a patient who was imprisoned for more than a decade. Patients were rigorously monitored day and night, as evidenced by iron bars on windows and spy holes in doors. The facility was closed after the Italian government issued legislation condemning harsh psychiatric treatment, including the infamous use of electroshock therapy at Volterra. The strange calm that now pervades the corridors and chambers is a striking reminder of the agony that previously took place here. Oreste Ferdinand Nanetti, a previous patient who spent 14 years within these walls, created beautiful sculptures on the walls. Experts have been perplexed by his enigmatic symbols and drawings, which bear witness to the agony that unfolded behind these crumbling walls. These cryptic signs fade away as time erodes the building, but the recollections of the misery endured within the Ospedale Psichiatrico di Volterra haunt those who dare to examine its terrifying remains. Number 18. The Island of the Dolls. The Island of the Dolls is located in Mexico City's creepy Xochimilco canals. The Don Julian Santana Barrera is at the center of this nightmare island's dark and mysterious history. Leaving his family behind to live as a hermit in the 1950s, he soon discovered the lifeless body of a young girl on the island, her tragic fate linked to the waters surrounding it.
This onesie clown doll.
Santana Barrera began hanging dolls over the island in an attempt to pacify her ghost. Dolls were left to rot after being discovered in canals or trash, their decaying shapes producing an eerie ambiance. Some feel she was a fiction of his imagination, while others say she was quite real. Don Julian Santana was discovered dead 50 years later, his body floating in the same canal where he claimed to have located the girl. This unpleasant island is now a popular tourist destination, with people attributing unusual happenings to the dolls, alleging they come alive at night, moving their limbs, opening their eyes, skies and communicating with one another. Fearing the spirit of Mexico's Aztec canals, no one dares to investigate this terrible location.
Oh my God, Phil.
Something just started talking from one of the dolls in here.
Number 17. Hotel del Salto. The Hotel del Salto's tragic story is filled with legends, suicides, and hauntings. This century-old structure, perched on the edge of Tequendama Falls in Colombia, has a grim history that still lingers today. According to legend, indigenous Muisca people would jump off adjacent Tequendama Falls to avoid Spanish conquistadors, and the apparitions of these unfortunate souls are claimed to haunt the grounds. Originally a domestic residence designed by architect Carlos Arturo Tapias in 1923, it was converted into a hotel in 1928. However, the falls just beyond its boundaries have seen a number of suicides, either fueled by despair or inspired by local tradition. Visitors from all over the world have flocked to this once grand hotel, captivated by its legends, disasters, and alleged ghostly happenings. Tragic stories and indigenous legends have left an everlasting effect on this location. The hotel's profits decreased throughout the years. Plans to convert it into an 18-story attraction came and went, and by the 1990s it was permanently shuttered. Guests claim to have seen apparitions, weird noises, and even a malevolent spirit in one of the hotel's rooms. Mysterious accidents and mudslides heightened the spooky mood, reinforcing the assumption that the location was haunted. However, restoration efforts began in 2011 and the building was repurposed into the Tequendama Falls Museum of Biodiversity and Culture. The Hotel del Salto is an icon of Colombia's history. Number 16. Povaglia Island. Povaglia Island, located in Italy's Venetian lagoon, has garnered a horrible reputation as Plague Island, a name that sends shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. This abandoned location dates back to 421 AD and was originally inhabited by refugees. However, Povaglia Island saw indescribable anguish during the 16th century. Povaglia became a quarantine island for the sick and dying after the plague ravaged Italy. To bury the victims, mass graves were dug, and their fate was nothing short of horrible. Blood occasionally dripped from their mouths as the carcasses decomposed, prompting many to believe they were vampires feasting on corpses. To prevent this, stones were placed in their mouths, a horrible superstition-based cure. But the island's desolate past does not stop there. In 1922, Povaglia became the site of a psychiatric hospital run by a mad scientist who subjected inmates to horrific experiments, including lobotomies. The director's fall into insanity culminated in his leap from the clock tower, supposedly inspired by the ghosts of his victims. Except for the souls who stay, Povaglia Island is deserted today. Fishermen avoid the region, reporting screams, moans, and the sound of a defunct bell. Restless spirits haunt the island, including Little Maria, the spirit of a toddler wailing on the shore, the phantom racing of Pietro's wheelchair, Federico's strange laughing, and the visage of a young woman who fears the mad doctor's experiments are claimed to fill the hospital halls. Visitors to the island have reported being observed, followed, scratched, or pushed. The hospital's shadows seem to have a mind of their own, shaking everyone. Number 15. Hashima Island. Hashima Island, commonly known as Battleship Island, is a barren land off the coast of Japan near Nagasaki. It's been abandoned for years, but it's far from deserted, as the ghosts have taken up residence among its crumbling structures. The narrative of Hashima Island began in 1890, when Mitsubishi purchased it and transformed it into a symbol of Japan's fast industrialization. Concrete constructions intended to endure regular typhoons began to rise in 1916. However, there was a darker side to this industrial advancement. Korean and Chinese POWs were forced to labor here under severe conditions from 1930 until just after World War II. They nicknamed the island Jail Island or Hell Island.
Stacks and stacks of their x-rays. All employers, everything, family members.
Following the war, Japanese laborers increased the population to almost 5,000 in 1959, leaving each person with only 5 feet of living space. When the coal supplies ran out in 1974, the population left, leaving nature to reclaim the abandoned areas. The elements wore down the concrete, causing buildings to crumble. Strange flickering lights, mysterious noises, and freezing cold areas have been observed by fishermen within the abandoned buildings. Some people claim to have sensed the presence of unseen hands or the feeling of being watched. While tourists are now permitted to visit the island, its history still haunts it.
Hashima Island, one of dozens of controversial sites Japan has pushed to gain UNESCO World Heritage recognition.
Number 14, Bodhi Ghost Town. The Bodhi Ghost Town blurs the boundary between superstition and fact. This Gold Rush-era village, located in the eastern Sierra, appears trapped in time, lonely and spooky. What distinguishes Bodhi is not merely its history, but also the legend of its curse.
This one is 8,400 feet up in the mountains, just east of the high Sierras, near the Nevada line.
The curse of Bodhi is not your typical story. According to legend, cursed souvenir takers submit letters of apologies and return the goods they stole in order to break free from the curse's influence. However, the twist is that the curse did not originate with old prospectors or ghost hunters. It was designed to deter theft by the California Department of Parks and Recreation. This unintended curse has taken on its own life, haunting those who believe in it. Bodhi, once a thriving gold rush town, is now decaying. Some of its structures appear to be locked in the past. The curse may be a myth, but historic artifact theft is real, forcing park employees to deal with returning stolen goods. Every week, letters of regret and returned things appear on Bodhi's porch. Visitors are enticed to take a piece of Bodhi's history by its distinctive ambiance, which has been preserved in time. But what makes them return these things? Perhaps fear of being haunted. Nonetheless, one thing is certain. In Bodhi, the past and present are mysteriously interwoven.
Take this back to the 1880s when it was in its heyday.
Right.
Main reason being 90% of the town is gone.
Number 13, Monsal Seaforts. The Monsal Seaforts are World War II remains that still float the seas. Naval fortifications have a long history, but during World War II, engineer Guy Monsal adopted a unique approach by creating seaforts. These forts, located in the Thames estuary to protect London and the Mersey estuary to protect Liverpool, were built in response to the threat of enemy bombers. Forts were creative and strongly armed and came in two varieties, Army and Navy. They were equipped with searchlights, quick-firing weapons, and Bofors cannons, which caught Luftwaffe crews off guard. Particularly effective in intercepting hostile aircraft were the Thames estuary forts. While the forts could not prevent all large raids, they did greatly diminish the threat. Due to losses in the Battle of Britain and the Eastern Front, the Luftwaffe's resources diminished as the war progressed. The forts relied on maritime supplies, which were critical to their operation. They defended the key shipping passage in the Channel from German minefield attempts. They also played an important role in intercepting buzz bombs. Following the war, these forts became obsolete and were eventually decommissioned. Some were converted as pirate radio stations in the 1960s, transmitting music illegally from international waters. However, modifications in territorial seas put an end to their days of pirate radio. The majority of Monsal Seaforts have fallen victim to the ravages of time and tide, yet their legacy lingers on. These forts, which are now mostly underwater, are rather intriguing and frightening. Number 12. Pripyat. Pripyat was a thriving city of 50,000 people in 1986 when it was unexpectedly abandoned owing to the devastating catastrophe at the adjacent Chernobyl nuclear power facility. The city's streets are now silent, overgrown with trees and vines, and collapsing structures serve as daunting reminders of nuclear power's dangers. Pripyat was once a spectacular example of Soviet atomic-age futurism, a modernism showcase aimed to emphasize its association with high-tech achievements. It has shopping districts, medical facilities, schools, and residential neighborhoods that were all built from the ground up to house nuclear workers. The prevailing winds saved Pripyat from the worst of the radioactive plumes on that terrible day. Residents of the town, meanwhile, continued to suffer heightened radiation levels, with air exposure rates hundreds of times higher than the average background rate. Authorities did not order an evacuation until late in the evening. Today, urban explorers explore its lonely neighborhoods, discovering remains of daily life ranging from children's toys in kindergartens to vacant hospitals. Nature has seized these once mighty structures, resulting in a haunting beauty and decay. While radiation levels have dropped over time, the risk of resettling Pripyat remains a source of hesitation. Number 11, Dundas Castle. The abandoned Dundas Castle in upstate New York is subject to a terrifying curse. Ralph Wirtz Dundas, a wealthy recluse, fantasized about life as a Scottish laird. In 1907, he purchased the Beaverkill Lodge log cabin in the Catskill Mountains. For Dundas, though, only a stone-walled, richly furnished castle would suffice. By 1915, the designs were complete, and Finnish stonemasons began building on the castle. Dundas, who was thorough yet impulsive, had portions knocked down and rebuilt to reflect his ideas. When Ralph Dundas died in 1921, tragedy hit. Josephine, his wife, was pronounced legally incapable and put in a mental institution. Muriel, their daughter, suffered the same fate. The castle sat abandoned during the Great Depression and World War II, undisturbed by its owner's tragedies. In 1949, a group of African-American masons bought the castle, oblivious to its bleak history. The castle underwent disrepair, with Joel Handwork's stunning images capturing its sinister soul. The castle, sometimes known as Ravenloft Castle, combines medieval and 20th century characteristics. Despite its decay, Dundas Castle is a living witness to Ralph Dundas's magnificent vision. Number 10. Aniva Lighthouse. Aniva Lighthouse, perched on the rugged Aniva Cape in the Sea of Okhotsk, was built during Japan's control of Sakhalin Island prior to World War II. It was designed by Japanese engineer Shinobu Miura to direct ships safely across dangerous waters rife with currents, fog, and rocky shoals. The 9-story concrete tower of the lighthouse previously housed up to 12 people, replete with bunk beds and living rooms. A mechanical rotating system at the top powered the light, which could be seen up to 19 nautical miles away. Russia recalled staff from the lighthouse in 1990, automating operations until 2006. It now remains desolate, falling to deterioration. Parts of the structure are deteriorating, and rust is eroding the metal doors and structures. The journey to Aniva Cape is an adventure in itself, requiring an hour-and-a-half ride, a 2-hour boat ride, and a difficult climb up a rocky cliff. Nonetheless, daring tourists are rewarded with stunning views and the haunting presence of this iconic lighthouse, situated alone in the middle of the sea.
Holy sh**. You know what is sketchy, though? All the bird that gets on your hands. Holy shit.
Number 9. Daddy Park. The Daddy Park is Belgium's oldest amusement park, which was once bustling with activity but now lies in emptiness. It was founded in the 1950s by priest Gaston de Weir as a playground for pilgrims visiting the Basilica of Our Lady of Dadizel. It evolved over time into a modern amusement park open to all community children. Daddy Park had 1 million people and featured bumper cars, carousels, swings, slides, and other attractions. However, a tragedy occurred in 2002 when a small boy was injured on the jet boat ride. Safety concerns had already been raised, but this incident resulted in the park's closure. Despite rehabilitation plans, the park remained desolate, attracting urban explorers, graffiti artists, and photographers. Some attractions remained operational, and customers flocked to the parking lot on a daily basis. The park faced demolition in 2012 as nature reclaimed the property. Attempts to resurrect it were futile, and it was eventually changed into a residential neighborhood known as Daddy Park in 2016. Today, the echoes of laughing have gone, and Belgium's once thriving amusement park is a distant memory. Number 8. Aral Sea. The ambitious Soviet planners envisioned Central Asia becoming a cotton-producing behemoth. To do this, the 2 great rivers, the Sirdarya and the Amur Darya, were diverted to irrigate the dry desert where cotton would thrive. This plan was a short-term success, with Uzbekistan becoming a major cotton producer in the 1980s. The environmental implications, on the other hand, were disastrous. The Aral Sea, once a massive saline lake, shrank to 10% of its previous size. The Aral Sea could no longer be replenished by the diverted rivers. Both rivers had dried up before reaching the lake by the 1980s, causing it to evaporate quickly. By 1997, it had split into smaller, saltier lakes, leaving an empty landscape. The shrinking of the Aral Sea caused catastrophic environmental concerns. Rising salt and mineral content, along with concentrated pesticides, rendered the water unfit for consumption and effectively wiped out its fishing sector. The region had harsher weather and serious health problems as a result of toxic dust storms. Soon the area was abandoned. Only the ruins of the Aral Sea are left with a ship graveyard in Jalanash, where ships that previously sailed remain to rust and decay. Most, however, have been destroyed for scrap metal, leaving only a few relics. The tragic fate of the Aral Sea serves as a harsh reminder of one of the deadliest man-made environmental disasters in history. Number 7. Cape Romano Dome House. The Cape Romano Dome House is a unique abandoned structure in Florida. Bob Lee built this unusual house in 1979 as a self-sustaining solar-powered residence on land. It comprises 6 dome-shaped modules erected on stilts. However, a sequence of tragic circumstances, such as rising sea levels and tropical hurricanes, turned this one-of-a-kind home into a strange remnant. The connecting waterway between Morgan Island and Cape Romano was filled in by erosion over time, isolating the domed house on a distant island from its original location. The house became encircled by water as the sea encroached farther. The house was abandoned in 1992 owing to the steady rise of water levels. It was purchased for $300,000 by John Tosto of Italy in 2005, with plans to renovate it. Nature, on the other hand, had different ideas. Hurricane Wilma hit, eroding the coastline and destabilizing the foundations of the property, resulting in a futile attempt to transfer it. Tosto suffered bureaucratic and regulatory challenges, and the house was ordered to be demolished. Despite court battles and fines, it was not demolished or relocated. The house was submerged in 6 feet of water by 2013, acting as a reef filled with aquatic life. In 2017, Hurricane Irma struck again, causing 2 of the domes to collapse. The next year, ownership was passed to the state, leaving behind a heartbreaking legacy of a mansion claimed by the sea.
Where I want to take you guys shelling first is just another.
Number 6. Bannerman Castle. Bannerman Castle, located in the Hudson Valley, about 50 miles north of New York City, is filled with terrifying stories. This early 20th century edifice was previously an armory, but has since been decommissioned. After a terrible fire in 1969, it remained in ruins until 1992, when the Bannerman Castle Trust was founded, allowing adventurers to explore its spooky history. This fortress, perched on Povaglia Island, is linked to Francis Bannerman, a Scottish armaments merchant raised in Brooklyn who bought the island in 1900. Bannerman's military surplus business was flourishing, and he required an isolated site to store his huge inventory. With its ghostly reputation among Native Americans, Povaglia Island seemed the obvious choice. Bannerman's business was advertised through the castle, which was created in the style of Scottish baronial castles. It was complete with arsenals, storerooms, turrets, and even a moat. Bannerman's collection was so enormous that he supplied the United States government with cannons, uniforms, and blankets during World War I. The castle's construction proceeded throughout the war, but it was not completed when Bannerman died in 1918. A large explosion shook the island in 1920, devastating the castle's structure. Bannerman's family lived on the island until 1930, when it began to decay. Another fire, thought to be arson, destroyed the castle in 1969.
Povaglia Island, New York, located just 60 miles north of New York City.
Time for our subscribers' pick. Here's a picture of a place that people have been forbidden from entering for 100 years, and the reason is chilling. This is an abandoned Soviet testing site in the Caspian Sea off the coast of Makhachkala in Dagestan, Russia. Here, workers not only lived but also developed naval weapons and torpedoes. Now decommissioned, it still houses remains of parts of weapons developed here. Could that be the reason access is still forbidden to this metal and concrete fortress? Or could there be something much more petrifying hidden in its darkness? Let us know your thoughts below. Number 5. Sanji. A disturbing story unfolds amid the abandoned grounds of Sanji in northern New Taipei, Taiwan. In 1978, this region was envisioned as a future vacation beach resort, complete with otherworldly UFO-like residences resembling Futuropods. However, despite being constructed to cater to American servicemen and the wealthy, this amazing resort never hosted a single tourist. Instead, it turned into a ghost town full of eerie conspiracy ideas. The Hung Kuo group spearheaded the project, which was inspired by the idea of Matti Suronin, a Finnish architect known for his futuristic designs. The goal of the UFO Futuro-chic architecture was to create a one-of-a-kind and futuristic paradise for troops. However, financial difficulties forced the project's closure in 1980. A brief relaunch attempt in 1989 was cut short due to structural challenges and competing ideologies. For 30 years, the spot drew urban explorers and inspired eerie stories. Superstitions were fanned by strange occurrences during construction, worker fatalities, and suicides. Some believed the area was cursed because of the demolition of a Chinese dragon monument, while others claimed it was erected on a Dutch army burial ground. Despite its potential, Sanji has been dubbed the ruins of the future. The UFO-like structures were demolished in 2010, leaving only frightening images. Number 4, Fordlandia. The haunting remains of Fordlandia in the Amazon jungle bear witness to Henry Ford's ambitious dreams and their subsequent terrible unraveling. In the 1920s, Ford attempted to construct his utopian vision of an ideal city, a synthesis of his economic prowess and social values, while also securing a cheap source of rubber for his automobiles. Fordlandia was created to embody Ford's principles and to instill character in a forgotten corner of the earth. The famed businessman, known for revolutionizing automobile production and treating his employees fairly, saw this enterprise as an extension of his vision. This Amazonian experiment, however, swiftly devolved into pandemonium. Due to rough waterways, the location proved unsuitable for building, resulting in delays and labor dissatisfaction. Violence occurred, causing generators and equipment to be damaged. It took the leadership of Archibald Johnston to restore order and comfort to the city, but rubber production remained elusive. Despite Ford's efforts, the rubber plants were beset by blight, and renowned botanist James R. Weir's elaborate planting methods failed. By 1945, Ford's focus had switched to wartime endeavors, and the economic basis for Fordlandia had evaporated. It was secretly returned to Brazil, and its American occupants left. Fordlandia's rusted machinery and fading water tower tell the story of high intentions gone wrong. Number 3. Ruins of Vale dei Mulini. The Vale dei Mulini, or Valley of the Mills, is an attraction in the Italian region of Campania. This valley, formed thousands of years ago by volcanic activity and river erosion, was once a bustling focus of human activity. The first remains in the valley were discovered in the 10th century AD, when flour mills utilized the power of the Casolano, Cesarano, and St. Antonino streams. These mills crushed wheat and supplied flour to the community, while a sawmill supplied high-quality wood to cabinet manufacturers. A public lavatory also catered to the women of Sorrento. With the passage of time, industrialization took root, and the Vale dei Mulini rose to prominence as a major paper-making center, having as many as 25 functioning mills at its zenith in the 10th and 11th centuries. However, as the 19th and 20th centuries progressed, changing conditions forced the mills to close. Piazza Tasso, which opened nearby in 1866, provided a drier working environment. The mills gradually fell into disuse and disrepair. Mother Nature took control once humans left, creating a climate suited for plant development due to increased humidity. The mill's walls were covered with dense ferns and foliage, transforming the remains into an exquisite green environment. Today, visitors may see this beautiful picture from above, a reminder that nature reclaims what was once built even in the absence of humans. Number 2. Colemanskop. Colemanskop is renowned as the abandoned diamond town of Namibia. This site, once a lively oasis in the center of the Namib Desert, now remains a frightening remnant of the past. This hot desert had various sized buildings that have now sank into the sand. They are relics of a time when Colemanskop was one of Namibia's wealthiest villages. Wandering through the town's desolate streets now is a scary experience. Sand dunes have engulfed the once thriving structures, devouring them whole. Bed frames and bathtubs are half buried beneath the harsh desert, while doorways linger as haunting reminders of a past era. However, the history of Colemanskop is intertwined with diamonds. A railway worker discovered a gleaming stone in 1908, sparking a diamond rush that transformed this distant town into a paradise of luxury.
I do recommend bringing your hat, sunglasses, some sunscreen, a big bottle of water.
However, Colemanskop's prosperity came at a high cost, as it was part of a colony marred by violence and genocide. The diamond boom resulted in opulence, with a police station patrolled by camel-mounted officers, a bustling market, and even a hospital equipped with high-end equipment. However, it all vanished as swiftly as it appeared. New diamond sources were discovered nearby in 1928, and the town's fortunes began to diminish. This deserted diamond town serves as a historical memorial to a sad period in colonial history. Number 1. Croco. The mysterious ghost town of Croco's deteriorating streets and buildings, abandoned in 1980, continues to captivate those who dare to visit. Croco's history dates back to the 6th century AD when the Greeks established there. However, ancient tombs date back to the 8th century BC. The medieval layout of the town was formed in the 12th century when Normans installed a watchtower, which was flanked by palazzi built in later decades. Croco's fate has been entangled with the tumultuous events of the greater region throughout its history. Nature, however, was ultimately responsible for Croco's demise. The village, perched perilously on a rocky outcrop, was devastated by earthquakes and landslides, rendering it unusable after World War II. Most residents were relocated to a new town in a nearby valley in 1963, and Croco was completely abandoned in 1980. Today, guided tours of the town's deteriorating ruins are available. Croco has houses and stairways layered on top of one another. Its advanced condition of ruin is visible up close, with rusty balconies, overgrown weeds, and a sense of desolation. A few churches, such as Santa Maria della Stella, remain standing, maintaining stories of miraculous finds and darker traditions from the town's intriguing past.
Allein in der Nacht waren es ja schon 30 Grad.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.